several key issues, including what to do about the soon-to-expire Bush tax cuts, will be waiting for them. What are they actually going to accomplish on Capitol Hill before the new year? Well, let's talk about it with our political panel. Ron Nehring, the chairman of the California Republican Party, and Fox News contributor Kirsten Powers. Welcome to you both.
Hi, Shannon.
Great to be here.
All right, guys, let's talk about some of the things that are bubbling for the lame duck session. The Bush tax cuts we mentioned, the DREAM Act, which Democrats say is one of their top priorities, some budget bills for the fiscal year 2011, Don't Ask, Don't Tell, the START Treaty. Kirsten, what are they going to get done?
That's a great question. I think everybody sort of would like to know that. The thing that I think people are probably watching the most closely are the Bush tax cuts. And one of the problems is, I think, is that the Democrats don't really have a unified position. They've sort of been all over the map versus the Republicans have a very clear position. They want to extend the tax cuts for the upper earners. And the Democrats are trying to find some middle ground. Well, maybe we could extend it up to, make it only, people over $1 million, or maybe we won't do it at all, or we don't really know what it is. And I think unless they can have a really unified position, it makes it very difficult, and they could just head to nothing getting done.
Well, Ron, Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid has said that, hey, if you want to take a vote on our version of this, which is extending those cuts up to $250, and also let the Republicans take a vote extending them for all, we're just going to throw it out there. If we can get it done, let's let both votes happen. But if the numbers aren't there for either, do tax cuts, go away for everybody January 1st because these guys are playing a game of chicken in the Senate?
That's right, and that's because the Democrats just can't resist the opportunity to try to raise taxes on somebody, whatever way they possibly can, one group or another. Republicans have been very clear we need to extend all of these tax cuts. We need to make them permanent. Now is the worst time in the world for us to be raising taxes on the American people. And the Democrats have an opportunity with this lame duck session of Congress to show some leadership, to step up, to recognize that the American people issued a restraining order on Congress with this last election saying stop what you're doing, stop raising the taxes, stop raising the spending, and let's move in a different direction. And Democrats can exert leadership here, or we can roll it over into January. But the proper thing to do here is to extend all those tax cuts, make them permanent for everyone. Let's take this uncertainty out of the economy. Let's restore some certainty as to what people's tax rates are going to be next year, and let's have the positive effect come out of that people actually know what their liabilities are going to be next year. Businesses can start to invest again. They can have a clear idea as to what they're facing next year.
All right, Kirsten, we know this week the president held a meeting at the White House. Democratic leaders were there. GOP leaders were supposed to be there. They canceled because of scheduling conflicts, they said. But we understand behind closed doors there, it got a little heated at times, according to some reports, and that there are senators expressing a lot of frustration with the White House at this point. Senator Bill Nelson out of Florida is mentioned as one who sort of was mixing it up in that meeting. The Democrats seem to be frustrated with the president for different reasons. Some say that his policies actually have hurt them at the ballot box this last time around. Do you think that's accurate? And is it really a case of infighting at this point?
I don't really believe that very many people can legitimately say it was his policies. I think most of the people who lost were they were basically in districts that were very conservative districts. They came in with a wave and they went out with another wave. That really is what happened, contrary to what the sort of demagoguing of the right has been, which, I was just listening to your other guests just talking about, oh, Democrats just love to raise taxes. And, and the message was that the Democrats have been raising taxes and they need to stop. Well, Democrats haven't been raising taxes. Obama gave everyone a tax cut. And these are the Bush tax cuts, which are expiring, which is the way they were structured by the Bush administration, is not the fault of Obama. Furthermore, we have a major deficit, and I believe that one of the messages that really did come from this election was that people are very upset about the deficit, and to add upper earner tax cuts, we're talking about $4 trillion, which is not an insignificant number, and of course it's much larger than most of the programs that conservatives are always screaming about. So I think why people are upset with the president is because he's not really strong on these issues. He allows this to happen. He allows the conservatives to demagogue these things and to sort of muddy the waters, and so everybody gets confused. Like, most people don't know they got a tax cut. I mean, the president just is not good at communicating, which is the ultimate irony.
All right, Ron, let me ask you about that. Is it a problem of communication? Because this administration has said that again and again, and polling shows that people are tired of kind of that line. But also on this issue of internal issues with the Democrats, I mean, the president is taking heat, we understand, from people like Senator Nelson, Bill Nelson out of Florida, but also on the other end from folks like Franken and Senator Bernie Sanders, who think he's not pushing us far enough to the left. I mean, is he just sort of stuck in the middle at this point?
Well, a communication problem. The Democrats know that this is the great communicator. That Barack Obama was elected as the greatest communicator the Democratic Party has ever put up. He's held more press conferences. He's given more speeches, teleprompter or no, than any of his predecessors in modern times. This is not a communications problem. It's a policy problem, because Barack Obama and the Democrats acted as though the 2008 election meant that America all of a sudden decided to become a lot more like Sweden. America didn't become a lot more like Sweden. America, this is remains a center-right country. People are very concerned about the policies of this administration. They could have adopted a centrist stimulus bill. They could have adopted a centrist health care bill. They could have chosen, instead of doing cap and trade, to do some incentives for clean energy. On one major issue after another, they've chosen the far left of the far left to determine their policy agenda. And I just think it's hilarious to sit back and listen to whether Barack Obama needs to take advice from Al Franken or the socialist from Vermont in terms of whether he should go further to the left. Politically, if the Democrats want to go further to the left, it's just going to mean more Republican advancement in 2012. But that's not what the economy needs. What the economy needs is an economic policy that does a 180 out of this stimulus direction, that brings spending down, that restores some certainty, to have some certainty in terms of the regulatory environment, and do not raise taxes on anyone or any business at a time when we're trying to create economic growth and job creation. That's going to have to come from those small and medium-sized businesses who would be hit the hardest by the tax hikes that the Democrats are advocating for right now.
We will see what they get done or don't get done in the lame duck session. Ron, Kirsten, thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Police in Tallahassee, Florida are searching for a suspect after a single mother and her 3 children were found dead in their home. And investigators say they got a suspicious 911 call Saturday morning and found the bodies of the woman, her 6-year-old twins, and a 3-year-old. So far, police have not released a motive or the victims' names. In Ohio, a community came together to hold a vigil for the family and their